Hi, everyone. And as a wise man once said in a keynote, and it kind of stuck to me, and it's now in every presentation, I have stage fright, but you learn the most by sharing your knowledge with others. So here we are. Whee! So this talk assumes no knowledge. I don't assume that you already know what self-management is. And I don't assume you know what holacracy, the framework that we're using, are. So sit back, relax, let me walk you through it. You can interrupt me for questions at any time if anything is unclear. In fact, please do. And if you already know about self-management and holacracy, here's a picture of me with a dragon, so you get something out of it. So, hi, I'm Michelle. I'm an addict. I'm a color and code addict. And I'm a Symphony Care team member, Code of Conduct Active Response Ensurer. That means that if something happens in the Symphony community, you get to talk to me. So that you don't wonder about my accent the entire talk, you already know from the introduction, but I'm Swedish, and if I talk too fast or something is unclear or you can't understand, please interrupt me and I'll try to clarify for you. So I work at Leap. Leap is awesome. Leap lives and breathes open source, just like I do. We are very active in Symphony, so you might have heard of us before if you do Symphony. So how many here heard about Leap before? Wow, that's quite a lot. That's pretty cool. We are agile, and I like to say that with agile, it means that we love change. So we love changing, we do what's best. And that's also why self-management works so well for us. Only employees at Leap can own shares. These are things that happen before self-management as well. So it means that there are no non-employees having a say, and that's really important to us, and it stays that way. And bonuses for everyone or no one. So we have a 14 salary or 15, 16, whatever, depending how much we earn in a year. And it's for everyone or no one. We care about the environment, which is really important for me. And we have values. And they are not negotiable under any circumstances whatsoever. So before holacracy, we had a kind of flat hierarchy anyway. You could say we had a management layer on top of just the flat. We didn't have junior or senior roles. I'm a programmer. I guess unofficially I'm senior, but we never really had that layer because we're just people doing our work the best we can. And that's also what made it easier for us to change. I can have an entire talk about how awesome our management was. So I had this management buddy, and I could always go to him and talk to him, asking questions. He would give me the right place to be, or 10 beers if I needed it. So he helped me to stay in the company, and all the managers, they helped everyone as much as they possibly could in any given situation. So we had a working management situation at Leap. So let's look a bit at the traditional company structure. This wasn't us at Leap, but it's how I imagine a lot of companies. Looking from the top, you see only shit. When looking from the bottom, you see only assholes. Kind of true somehow. And then in holacracy, we do things different. So you see that we have the typical pyramid of CEO, upper management, middle management, and supervisors, and then you have the staff below. And in a traditional hierarchy, you talk to your next step in a pyramid, and you rarely get to talk to the top. But in holacracy, it's different. It spreads everything you do into a very clear, specified role. So it's in a circle, and this circle grows organically. So here you can see that we have a super circle, and inside this circle, we can have subcircles. And in those circles, we have roles. And every person, they have whichever role they think is cool. So the way this works is that in every circle you have someone who's a lead link, and that lead link communicates to from the upper circle down to their circle, and then there's a rep link who represents their circle to the upper circle. It's a bit confusing, I know. And in this, to change the system, you have meetings called a governance, and it's tension-driven. And then I realized, what do you do then if you have all these circles and you have no management? How do you know where to go? How do you know how everything works? So I'd like to say I had some holy crazy fears when this got introduced at Leap. How will I feel safe? What's the structure here when I can no longer go to my management buddy and talk to him when something happens? That to me was very important to have a system for this, and I wasn't sure what to do. And do I have to be more than just a dev now? Do I have to actually file bills, or what do I have to do? Do I have to do things that the management did before? I don't want to be more than just a dev, I thought. And will our salary system change? Because if everyone can change anything, does that mean that the loud vocal people will be the ones who change the salary system? And will we suddenly be at disadvantage because of it? So the way our salary system worked before Holacracy was that we had a point system. So you get points for steady factors such as education, experience, and then you get points for team motivator, potential, and other things. And then our management buddies, they would have a meeting with us once a year and set our salary points. And based on those salaries, we would be in a grid and we would get a salary. That worked pretty well. You could not negotiate your points or your salary, so it meant that it wasn't unfair. And my worry was that with Holacracy, it could change. Also, will I be in a lot of pointless meetings and waste my time? Because there's all these circles, and every circle has a meeting to decide everything, to share information, etc., etc. And that, if I have a lot of roles, which you will see shortly, admits to me being in only meetings and not developing anymore. And lastly, how do I ensure that Leap stays Leap? If someone wants to change something and we can change everything, how do I ensure that the company I moved to another country for actually doesn't go in a direction I'm not comfortable with? And so before Holacracy, salary points was kind of a hit or miss. Yes, my management buddy set it, and I was lucky to work with him directly, but not everyone worked closely with the management. And who does what? It was kind of all in our heads. We didn't know who did what in the company, and we just asked management. Their main job was to answer questions, really. And this wasted a lot of unnecessary time. So Holacracy is the framework that we chose to implement for self-management. It was one of the managements once at one of our internal conferences where we were about 150 people at the time, had a talk entitled, "Fuck Management." And we've realized Holacracy, it's not that crazy. As I said, it's tension-driven, which means that if I have a tension that I want to say, so for instance, I wanted to remove the flight policy, because at Leap we have a no-flight policy, so we can't fly under any circumstances for the environmental purpose. And then I decided I have a tension to remove it, and went to this governance process, and got denied because it was against the values. So it's really great to be able to change anything you want to, unless it's against your values. The objection process is really heavy, so does this bring the company backwards? Yes and no. Is it safe enough to try? Yes and no. Usually everything you suggest is safe enough to try, so we can change the company in any way we want. Absolute transparency is demanded, so we have all the information we actually need, and the structure creates clarity. So I believe we have a lot better clarity now than we did before. I'll show you. And now we are purpose-driven and we have principles. Before we're a web agency, we kind of do cool stuff and we have no idea why we do it. And now we have a bit more idea. Purpose over profit, trust over control, practice over theory, risk over safety, flexibility over strength, open over close, compasses over maps. This, within my role as team event organizer, is really cool. I can spend as much money as I want without control and without limit, as long as I believe it's for the company's best. And that's in my role to decide. Holacracy is a tough transition though, but I would say it's totally, totally, totally worth it. There's no such thing as a management or leadership career anymore at LEAP, which means that some people, they don't want to work at LEAP anymore because that's a traditional career ladder step. And so we decided to translate some of our roles to help them if they move on. And I find this awesome. We're all leapers. We don't care. Not everyone wants to work this way. And we found that for the people who don't want to work this way, they can have just one role and not really care. So let's go back and look at those fears. I feel safe now because we have a structure in place and we have internal mediators and HR and a good feedback system, and I always know where to go. And if I have attention, I can change anything. I am more than just a dev. I am so much more than just a dev. Our salary determiners make sure our salary system stays fair. It's in their role. All those meetings that I was afraid of, I don't go to them because I don't need to. They're optional. I only go to them if I have attention or if there's information that I need. I love LEAP and that we're attention-driven and that I can change absolutely anything, anything, anything at all. So let's look at our tool we use for this. Let's see. So we use a tool called HoloSpirit, which is here. So in this tool, we can look at the organization, and I think this gives you a better idea of what holacracy actually looks like. This is LEAP and how we work. So we see the general company circle, GCC, and in this circle we have all these roles and subcircles. So for instance, we have LEAP Zurich, which is the office Zurich as a circle and how we operate. And in this circle, we have other subcircles, the lead link. So the lead link is the person who takes information from the upper circle and tells everyone in the Zurich circle who needs to know. And then me as rep link, I represent everyone in the Zurich office. If they want to change something, for instance, they say, we want to change the spending policy, then it's my job to help them change it. And a facilitator is the one who facilitates the meetings. Secretary is the one who keeps a record of everything going on in the circle. And we have all these roles. So if we look at event organizer, for instance, here we see me, board games and karaoke, etc., purpose, and then we have the accountabilities. And that is what we work for. So whenever I want to find something, I want to find something that someone does. I want help with, let's say I'm giving feedback, and I want help with that. And I want to find someone who can help me. That was a bad thing to search for, there's so much. But in here you can find projects and people who do, so here, feedback culture, circle, purpose, an active feedback culture so that leapers develop themselves and their colleagues. And here we see role feedback helper. Accountabilities, reminding and asking leapers to give feedback, helping leapers to prepare feedback. So now in this tool I can say exactly and I can find who I want and what I want, and it's really useful and helpful. And also I can submit tensions here. So here is someone who wanted to change the circle of what they do. And it's really cool, and it's really helping us a lot. So there's so much to this structure and the company, but what I really took away from this is that I had all these fears of all these things that would change, and I wanted to be just a developer. But then looking at my roles now, this is all the things that I do at LEAP. And anything can change, and I feel powerful to change anything I want to do. And I believe this is a structure that works for almost everyone. Trust your employees, and your company will be the best it can be. Wrong one. I have too many windows open. Thank you. I know that this can be confusing, so please let me know if you have any questions.
Hi, Michelle. Thank you for your talk. There's something I didn't quite understand about money spending. So you said that anyone can spend money and that I don't really understand how it works.
Okay, so we have a spending policy. And in this spending policy, it says, within your role, you can spend money as much as you want, as long as it's in your accountabilities and purpose of your role. So me as a developer, I can spend money to buy a laptop. Or me as a company outing organizer, I can spend money for a dinner for the entire company. But I can't buy a Ferrari because that's not in any of my roles. But I can have attention to create a role that says Ferrari driver if I wanted to, and if people don't have objections against it, I could spend money in that role as well. They would obviously have objections against that because that would bring the company backwards. So that's where the safety net of spending money goes in.
Hello, thank you very much for your conference, and it's very interesting. I'm curious about your tension-driven. So, what do you mean here, tension? How do you create it, and what kind of tension could be?
Right. So I actually have a tension right now. When you have a tension, so here. So I am a PHP beginner material creator. I make beginner material for our apprentices. And I thought it was really confusing because we're 3 people who do different things. So I wanted to change our role into a circle so we could say, okay, I am developer, he is video maker, etc. So then I add a proposal for a governance, and I select my role here. And then I can change the things we do. So I can make this role a circle, I can add accountabilities, I can make a new role, I can suggest to delete a role, or I can add a policy, which is really important. So for instance, the spending policy we have, where you can only spend within your role, if I don't like that, I can have a tension against it. And then we make these governance meetings, and we can object to the tension, and if there's no valid objection, it goes through. Is that a bit more clear?
Okay, thank you.
One last question.
Thank you for the conference. I have just a question. How long did it take for LEAP to be fully in holacracy? Because we've tried it not with TL, but with another company, and we've taken like 6 months to create 2 circles.
Yeah, so that's quite a good question that I can't answer fully, because it's also a bit of a mindset. So if you do your everyday development work and you don't notice, then those people are not really in holacracy. But I feel that it took maybe a year for people to actually start to understand what tensions is, that they have the power to change everything, that they don't have to listen to an upper management. And it took them time to realize that there isn't one. Whenever they had something they wanted to change, they had to go somewhere and change it. Probably took a year. I don't think everyone still has transition. I don't think people who work there will transition fully, but that's okay. The company structure works really well. For it to work really well and us not to be confused, it was maybe 6 months.
Thank you, Michel.
Thank you.